The findings and public announcement about the interstellar object Oumuamua by Harvard University's head of astronomy are one in which the entire scientific community are now going to be forced to sit up, take notice, and even acknowledge for themselves that what entered our neck of the solar neighborhood in 2017 was in fact an alien spaceship which was clearly intelligent in origin. Wait till you hear this. Abraham Loeb has emphatically announced that his findings are 100% real. The disclosure comes aimed a torrent of speculation on the first interstellar object ever witnessed in the modern era. After well over a year of running specific variations to the so-called asteroid's trajectory, has thrown up stunning anomalies that, if explained correctly, proves that this is not just speculation, but in fact we were buzzed by an intelligent civilization possibly using a disguised spacecraft for making contactless observations of the human race. Maybe all those signals we have been sending has finally gotten someone's attention, and if so, should we be getting ready for contact? Is that what the mobilization of the Space Force is all about? Of course, science is not a popularity contest, so the advanced researcher is taking a big risk in the release of such astonishing findings, and we are going to tell you why. A background check on the professor uncovers a decorated past that boasts endless awards of pride and accomplishment, including studied physics at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem as part of the Israeli Defense Talpiot program for recruits who demonstrate outstanding academic ability. Freeman Dyson, the theoretical physicist, and the late astrophysicist John Bacall admitted Loeb to the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton, whose past faculty members include Albert Einstein and J. Robert Oppenheimer. In 2012, Time magazine named Loeb one of the 25 most influential people in the field of space. He has won prizes, written books, and published 700 articles in the world's leading scientific journals. Last October, Loeb and his postdoctoral student Shmuel Bailey, also an Israeli, published an article in the scientific outlet, the Astrophysical Journal Letters, which seriously raised the possibility that an intelligent species of aliens had sent a spaceship to monitor and detect happenings coming from the Earth. The first interstellar guess came to us from the direction of Vega, the brightest star in the Lyra constellation, which is 26 light years from us. In the 1997 film Contact, it's the star from which the radio signals is sent to Jodie Foster. Strangely enough, strange signals have been detected this year that are unexplainable at the moment as astronomers scramble for answers as to exactly what is going on. Oumuamua was actually discovered by a Canadian astronomer, Robert Wyrick, using the Pan-STARRS telescope at the Haleakala Observatory in Hawaii. Oumuamua is Hawaiian for first distant messenger. It was discovered coming suspiciously close to Earth, and this is why it got interesting in the first place. Whereas all the planets, asteroids, and meteors that originate within the solar system, more or less, circle what is called the elliptic plane, that of our Sun. Since they were formed from the same disk of gas and dust that rotate around itself, Oumuamua entered the solar system north of the plane in an extreme hyperbolic orbit and at a speed of 26.3 kilometers per second, faster relative to the motion of the Sun. A reconstruction of its trajectory shows that Oumuamua traversed the elliptic planes on September 6, 2017, when the Sun's gravity accelerated the object to a velocity of 87.8 kilometers per second. On September 9th, the object passed closer to the Sun than the orbit of Mercury, and on October 14th, 5 days before it was discovered in Hawaii, the object passed 24.18 million kilometers away from Earth. or 62 times the distance from here to the moon. The professor made the following revelation in a recent interview. The article I published was written in part on the basis of conversation I had with colleagues whom I respect scientifically. Scientists of senior status said themselves that this object was peculiar, but were apprehensive about making their thoughts public. I don't understand that. After all, academic tenure is intended to give scientists the freedom to take risks without having to worry about their jobs. Unfortunately, most scientists achieve tenure and go on tending to their image. As children, we ask ourselves about the world. We allow ourselves to make mistakes. Ego doesn't play a part. We learn about the world with innocence and honesty. As a scientist, you're supposed to enjoy the privilege of being able to continue your childhood, not to worry about the ego, but about uncovering the truth. I suppose not. It's not just the tenure. I'm head of the astronomy department and founding director of the Black Hole Initiative, an interdisciplinary center at Harvard dedicated to the study of black holes. In addition, I'm director of the Board of Physics and Astronomy of the National Academies. So it could be that I'm committing image suicide if this turns out to be incorrect. On the other hand, if it turns out to be correct, it's one of the greatest discoveries in human history. For us to make progress in understanding the universe, we need to be credible. And the only way to be credible is to follow what you see, not yourself. Besides, what's the worst thing that can happen to me? I'll be relieved of my administrative duties. This will bring the benefit that I'll have more time for science. It was only under consecutive observation for 6 days, or about a week after its discovery. At first they said, okay, it's a comet, but no comet tail was visible. Comets are made of ice, which evaporates as the comet approaches the sun, but we didn't see a tail of gas or dust in Oumuamua. So the thinking was that it must be an asteroid, simply a chunk of stone. But the object rotated on its axis for 8 hours, and during that time its brightness changed by a factor of 10, whereas the brightness of all asteroids that we're familiar with changes at most by a factor of 3. If we assume that the light reflection is constant, that means its length is at least 10 times greater than its thickness. There are two possibilities in regards to this extreme geometry. One is that it's in the shape of a cigar, the other that it has the shape of a pancake. The truth is that the same observers who examined its light variation reached the conclusion that if it receives a lot of gravitational pushes during the voyage, its shape is pancake flat. Subsequently, additional qualities were discovered, such as its origin. The universe is a vast place, and even at Oumuamua's velocity, a velocity that no human spaceship has achieved, a voyage from Vega to the solar system would take 600,000 years. But in the meantime, Vega is orbiting the center of the Milky Way, like the Sun and all the other stars, and it wasn't in the region of the heavens 600,000 years ago. If you average the velocity of all the stars in the region, you get a system that's called the local standard of rest. Oumuamua was at rest relative to that system. It didn't come to us. It waited in place like a buoy on the surface of the ocean until the ship of the solar system ran into it. To make things clear, only one of 500 stars in the system is as much at rest as Oumuamua. The probability of that is very low. After all, if it were a stone that was simply hurled from a different solar system, we would expect it to have the velocity of its star system, not the average velocity of all the thousands of stars in the vicinity. However, the biggest surprise came last June when new data from the Hubble Space Telescope showed that the mysterious object had accelerated during its visit to the inner solar system in 2017, an acceleration that is not explained by the sun's force of gravity. Acceleration of that sort can be explained by the rocket effect of comets. The comet approaches the sun warms the ice of the comet, and the ice escapes into space in the form of gas, an emission that makes the comet accelerate like a rocket. but the observations did not reveal a comet tail behind it. Moreover, gas emissions would have brought about a rapid change in the rate of the object's spin, a change which was also not observed in practice, and it also might have torn the object apart. If it wasn't comet outgassing, what force caused it to accelerate? It is precisely here where Loeb enters the picture. According to his calculations, the acceleration was caused by a push. The only hypothesis I could think of is a push from solar radiation pressure. For that to work, the object would have to be very thin, less than a millimeter thick. In other words, a type of pancake. In addition, the Spitzer Space Telescope found no evidence of heat emissions from the object, and that means that it is at least 10 times more reflective than a typical comet or asteroid. What we have then is a thin, flat, shiny object. So I arrived at the idea of a solar sail. A solar sail is a spaceship that uses the sun for propulsion. Instead of using fuel, it is propelled ahead by reflecting light. In fact, it's a technology that our civilization is developing at this very time. The first question we asked is whether a sail could survive billions of years in the Milky Way, and we discovered that it could. Being hit by interstellar dust or gas wouldn't wear it down. Afterward, we tried to calculate the acceleration a solar sail would cause in an object, such as a ship or probe, and we found that the acceleration is consistent with that of Oumuamua. We have no way of knowing whether it's active technology or a spaceship that is no longer operative and it's continuing to float in space. But if it was created together with a whole population of similar objects that were launched randomly, the fact that we discovered it means that its creators launched a quadrillion probes like it to every star in the Milky Way. Of course, the randomness is significantly reduced if we assume that it was a reconnaissance mission that was deliberately sent to the inner solar system, namely to the habitable region where life would be feasible. But we need to remember that humanity didn't broadcast anything tens of thousands of years ago when the object was still in interstellar space. They didn't know there was intelligent life here, which is why I think it's just a fishing expedition. What do you guys make of the revelation made by the professor in charge of astronomy at Harvard University? This isn't just a random guy or a former employee. This is an active role model for generations of students who has nothing to gain and everything to lose. Yet he has risked it all to add his name to the growing list of whistleblowers who are telling the public in no uncertain terms that we are not alone and never have been. Comments below, and as always, thank you for watching.